Hi, my name is Stephanie Licata. Before we get to today's Magic in the Room episode, I want to tell you about our new online learning opportunities. Now is a great time to explore new ideas, skills, and strategies to forward your purpose. Our online courses are designed to be self-paced and cover a wide variety of professional development topics. Check out all the courses at www.purposeandperformancegroup.com/online-learning. That's www.purposeandperformancegroup.com/online-learning. Check the show notes for the link and enjoy today's episode of Magic in the Room.
Magic is found in every room, where people connect over a shared purpose. In this weekly podcast, Luke, Hannah and Chris explore the role of purpose, courage, mindset and culture in every leader's quest for transformational performance.
Welcome to Magic in the Room. My name is Ben West and I'm the producer of our podcast. We're doing something a little bit different today, so just wanted to give it some introduction. Chris is going to share a story of his life and some things that he's learned over time. I'm really excited about it. It's a great story. I love how it kind of weaves your personal with science and some things that you've learned just from your time doing this work that we do. So I'm really excited about it. So just give us some context. Why did you decide to build this story, to do the work of putting together a talk that, watching you do it, it took a long time for you to put this all together, pull all the pieces together and be ready for it?
Yeah, I think the main thing is there's an element of sense making for myself, and also knowing the story as I've experienced it. If I can close some gaps for people, if maybe I can remove some component of luck. I feel like I had to be really lucky to have things introduced to me along the way, right person, right time. But I learned all these things one step at a time. And I thought by bringing these things together, giving people confidence that there's an empirical base as to why these things work and why they're key to productivity, that maybe I could save someone some suffering, because it's painful to wander around bumping into stuff. Mm-hmm. I remember, just sitting there on my therapist's couch, trying to put pieces together, and he's like, read this. And, when it says life is hard, the sooner you accept it, the easier it becomes. You start to see the world differently. And, then I started thinking about the hard work of leaders and what are the outcomes that we produce and what happens if we do this and if we're more intentional in certain areas. And along the way, I learned a lot of what we are handed from our business forefathers. It has a lot of broken components. And if we now facing what we face and great resignations and, new generations in the workplace, like businesses have to be built differently. But what I love about this work and the 6 discoveries of high performance is it really does combine what I've experienced and how my personal values have been established with my education and what I'm passionate about there and the people I'm connected with every day, my families, my community, our work teams, with the work that we do. So it's just this very holistic approach. And I think it feels like my best existence, where it's authentic to me. And I believe that most everyone has the same authentic story. And by walking through this framework, maybe they can put some of their pieces together and be able to make those judgment decisions about, is where my effort is focused today, is that serving who I know myself to be? Mm-hmm. And that's really the cause, is I only get out of bed every day to help other people identify and achieve their vision of success. And if I can help people do that and remove some components of luck along the way, that allows me to advance my purpose. So it's very purpose-driven work for me. Also, Luke, Hannah, and I, have a thing. We're all working on our seminal deliveries that kind of envelop our keystone moments, and I had to be first.
So you won.
So I won.
Right.
There's
good.
an element of competition in this
Exactly.
as well.
Yeah. So Luke and Hannah, you're on notice. You got to get this done.
Yeah.
So-
Next week.
Exactly. Next week. Awesome. Well, I'm really excited about this. I love this talk that you've put together. And I think for listeners, you all are going to hear a great story, some background on Chris, but also get just some really practical things that you can do. So we're going to listen to Chris's delivery of this story. And then just so that you know, next week, Chris, Hannah, and Luke are going to come back into the studio and talk about this more in depth and have a conversation around it, which I'm really excited to hear their take on it and kind of how they respond to it.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing this with us, and we'll roll the footage of your talk.
Yeah. Here's 13 years and 30 minutes.
That's right, 13 years and 30 minutes.
Hello, everyone. This is Chris, and I wanted to take a minute today and think about where our hunger for success comes from. And as a courageous, intentional leader, have you given thought to that or created space to inventory your feelings and your sentiment about why are you engaging with this content? Why do you read the books that you read? Why do you keep the circles that you keep? I think that's an important inventory for us to take. And as we think about that today, I think the hunger for success comes down to, are we able to achieve our best? And what is our pathway to performance? Today, I want to share a little bit with you about the 6 most important discoveries of my life and my performance, and in hopes that it helps you along your path to success. Now, most stories start with, so there I was, but this isn't that kind of story. You see, I hadn't been born yet. This story is about my father, Brad Province. He was just a young man, just out of high school, and he was working on the Burlington Northern Railroad. He still lived at home with his parents, and he'd return home from week-long trips on the rail line just for a couple days' rest. And on one November night in 1974, Brad and his 2 siblings and his parents were sitting down for dinner. And I would imagine this dinner looked like sloppy joes or goulash, or those were seemingly, the family favorites. And as they were sitting down for the meal, the phone rang. And this was the kind of phone that hung on the wall and really rang, like throughout the house and reverberated. So my dad answered the phone with his usual inflection, "Hello." And on the other end, there was a 15-year-old girl. Her name was Jan White. My dad was friends with Jan's brother, Ricky, and Ricky and Brad were the best of friends and spent most every weekend in their high school days going hard. If there was a party going, they were certainly to be in the middle of it. And when it came to partying, they were real professionals. And over the course of time, Ricky's younger sister and Brad had taken a liking to one another, and I believe it's fair to say that things happened. And on this November night, Jan had mustered the courage to call and let Brad know that she was in fact pregnant and they were going to be parents. As was customary at that time, my dad felt the most right thing to do was get married and commit to raising a family together. I mean, they were 2 teenage kids with a kid on the way. Why not get married? And with a family on the way, my dad would decide to move away from the railroad and become a laborer and machine operator at a local production facility. And my mom was still in high school. What they could afford for a residence was a single-wide 80-foot trailer located in Willow Run Trailer Park, Lot 29 to be exact. It was in a small town in the middle of America, and it was in this single-wide trailer where I would grow up. As a child of teenage parents with limited education, limited opportunity, we struggled financially. I laugh a lot because dinners were so predictable. It was either spaghetti or 15 types of hamburger helper or bologna sandwiches, and we didn't have any of those. We had jam sandwiches, but the jam sandwiches we had weren't quite what you think. The way we made them was pretty unique. You see, I would reach into the bag of bread and grab one slice of bread with my left hand. I'd hold that piece, and I'd reach into the bag, grab another slice of bread with my right hand, and I would hold that piece, and I'd take these 2 slices of bread and jam them together. And that's what we called a jam sandwich. Now, it wasn't quite fine dining, but we never went hungry. And thinking about these things now, they're fond memories, and in no way, I don't feel like I missed out. It's quite the opposite. It's every experience I have I've had or have endured has served to develop me into the person that I am today. That said, growing up poor instilled in me a sense of hunger for success. I just had no idea how to achieve it. Along the way, I had to be very fortunate to find a path, to find my way, to become the best version of me. To live a life that's filled with connection and meaning, learning, and achievement. Today, to the best of my ability, I want to share with you the 6 most important discoveries of my lifetime. These are the things that I have learned that allow me, the teams I support, and the organizations I've been a part of to thrive. While these discoveries are very personal to me, and I've indeed lived my story through them, the domains I'm sharing about today are grounded in empirical research. These discoveries have been used to cultivate performance for leaders around the globe and from Fortune 500 companies to your corner hardware store. I'm sharing this framework in hopes it can be in service to you, that these things can be used to identify and achieve your unique vision of success. Now, about the model itself, I want to share a few notes on this framework because the model is labeled the 6 discoveries of high performance. The 6 discoveries of high performance are really about moving people from potential to performance. You see, we're all born with the talent to perform, but we require intentional and directed effort to transform that latent potential into practical performance. And by having a process to direct our efforts and our development, we can remove a lot of the guesswork and a lot of the pain associated with what I refer to as wandering around and doing stuff. You see, elevating performance is always about elevating intentionality. Doing stuff is certainly productive, but I always think, like, how much more productive can I be with the same effort when that effort is guided and in service to the roles I'm committed to, the values that I want to live by, and the purpose I've identified for my life. You see, the more intention we can apply, the more productive we can become, and that's really the idea, to become. Because becoming is better than being, and this concept of arriving at our best, I don't think it's possible. The reason why that's not possible is the moment we feel we've arrived, our habit is to become sedentary and possibly isolated. Here we can look to science and know that the second law of thermodynamics, it introduces this concept of entropy. Effectively, this physical law states that anything that is isolated and left to operate on its own will decrease in performance. Now, many of my mentors have stated this law in different ways to me, but I believe it applies to our personal lives and the teams and businesses and communities that we lead. A few of my favorite ways this law has been expressed by some of my mentors, including Dr. Scott Davies. He says, well, things fall apart. Well, you're right, Scott. And Gary Waddell, a dear friend and mentor of mine for a lot of years, says, what gets measured is what gets done. And most every MBA I've ever met says, what is not monitored trends downward. And I think the point of all this is that appropriate pressure and action is the requirement for leaders to perform at their highest levels. And these 6 discoveries of high performance are intended to provide courageous leaders a process to identify and action their intentions for life and business. I like to work through these discoveries from the most fundamental, which is mindset, to the highest level where our achievements are recognized and we develop resilience. As framed, our 6 discoveries build on top of one another, and they are having an igniter mindset, role clarity, purpose clarity, daily commitments, execution, and resilience. So our first discovery that we're going to build everything else upon is having an igniter mindset. An igniter mindset is a combination of a couple different disciplines and domains. One is growth mindset and outward. And so we've had Dr. Bob on talking a lot about this in the past, but this idea of being growth and outward as opposed to inward. But why is an igniter mindset important? Well, through the growth aspect, we make all goals attainable because we know we can develop the skills to travel pathways. We'll have a little bit more on that later. But this idea that we are empowered to grow our skills and then use these skills to benefit others and basically give them away. And there's this idea of being hungry for success, not to impress, but to create meaning. And I know that was a big step for me. And I thought success was an impression. And it took me a lot of failure and suffering to realize that it was an approach. Success is an approach. It is not a result. And, that's my internalizing, that's my definition. But I do know that as we grow our skills, we become more valuable to the people around us and the things we care about most. Our families, our friends, our communities, our work teams, and the organizations we're a part of. So you see, Igniter mindset is critically important because it gives us the authority to make any pathway possible. That any goal we set, we can develop our skills to travel that pathway and achieve what we identify as valuable. And as we grow these skills, we can apply them to benefit others. We become more valuable to the world around us and the people we care about most. The people in our communities, our families, friends, work teams, and the organizations that we contribute to. And that's Igniter mindset. Discovery number 2 is role clarity. Now, what is role clarity? Well, high-performance leaders and high-performance businesses have high role clarity and very clear expectations. Clear expectations pave the way to performance, and they do this because everyone's actions and what is required of them become clearer. It creates standards. It creates something to measure against. And only after we have high role clarity can we understand if we're performing. This idea of, hey, everything's good, you're good, I'm good, we're good, like against what? And that's why we have to take account of our roles. And this idea is we cannot be truly accountable until we are clear about what roles we're committed to. And once we're clear about what roles we're actually committed to, we can then become clear about our priorities within those roles and what success looks like within those roles. How do your values show up? And when it comes to role clarity, this idea of accountability is probably what resounds most to me. It's only by taking these inventories I can understand what I'm accountable to. Because whether we're talking about personally or professionally in a business, the opportunities for improvement are typically most easily identified in the areas where we are abdicating or avoiding accountability. And when we take an area where we're avoiding that accountability or it's not defined, and all of a sudden we get really intentional about it and we fill that void, it is amazing how quickly performance increases. Things left on their own fall apart. And the same goes with our roles. If we are unintentionally going about our roles, whether that's student, father, spouse, educator, coach, professional, practitioner, what have you, if we're avoiding accountability, then we cannot perform. In order to perform, we have to take these inventories. And it's something that I look forward to walking through with you later, is a kind of the role inventory and clarification exercise. But the point of this discovery is we cannot perform in any role unless we define what we're accountable to within it. And that's the idea of role clarity. So discovery number 3 is purpose clarity. We get the question a lot, what is purpose? And the way I internalize purpose, it's the greatest good we can possibly achieve. And the idea of purpose applies equally in life or in business. I have my personal purpose that is relative to the things I want to achieve and advance. And the work teams I'm a part of, we have a defined purpose. And it's what allows the system to work. It informs our roles. It informs our work, what we do day to day. And It's this singular point of focus. And that's why it's important. Having a clear and authentic purpose is the first step to engaging an audience, whether it's your community, your family, or your work team. This singularity, the focus, the dominant concern is primary, because if we're able to communicate our purpose clearly, the good we're trying to achieve, then people can choose whether or not to align with us. If we aim at nothing, we will hit it. But having a clear purpose and cultivating that purpose, it facilitates congruence with others. It creates gravity for my ideas. The people around me can choose whether or not what they believe aligns with what I'm trying to accomplish. And that's the role of purpose for leaders. Purpose moves us towards achievement and not acceptance, because it's about the good. It's not about the impression. When I spoke about success earlier, and it's not about impressing people, it's about achieving for people. And in that way, I'm not apologetic about a purpose. It is what I believe. And if that's what I focus my efforts around, that's where I'm going to get those returns. Let's think about, where do you currently spend effort? And I guarantee you, you're getting results in that area. In the moment you identify a clear and authentic purpose and you start focusing your effort around that one thing and that primary concern, that's where your results will be realized. And lastly, it does have to be excavated. It can't be created. It has to come from your values. It's already in your story. And if you haven't done that excavation or executed that work, we've got an online course. Any of us are more than happy to connect with you and serve as a coach as you work through this process. But most importantly, let's excavate it, cultivate it, and action it so you can define and achieve your vision of success. Discovery number 4 are daily commitments. And what are daily commitments? Well, commitments are the actions required to indicate to everyone else what we value. These aren't short-term things or today's concern. These commitments are based on profound beliefs that we hold dear. And really, the whole idea of the Leadership Challenge, I believe, it's about closing the gap between what we believe and how we show up to other people. Is part of that outward approach. And tying this a little bit back to mindset, it's really those daily commitments are about making certain I'm focused today on showing up to other people in a way that's aligned with my values and aligned with my roles. And if I can do that in a way that confirms my identity and allows me to advance my purpose, then I'm ready. I'm ready to capture the positive potential of today. But focusing our concern on how people leave our presence is a huge step in making certain we are known as the person we believe ourselves to be. By identifying and practicing our daily commitments, we can shape our approach to each day and align it with our purpose and values. This gives us the best chance to perform in a way that's naturally aligned to who we are. In short, our commitments are these individual behaviors that advance our higher level purpose and little by little make a substantial and significant impact on our world. Discovery number 5 is execution. What is execution? Execution is our test. It's the test of our ability to advance our purpose. Execution is focused on the doing and the learning that's required for us to perform at the highest level. Considering our mindset, purpose, and commitments, are the system and habits you have in place and set for your life, are they adequate to achieve the results you expect for each of your roles, not just one, and do they advance your purpose? Execution is really about how you do life. It's about what are the resources you're consuming, what are the resources you're deploying, whether that's financial or time or effort. Where's your intellect going? Where's your emotion going? All these resources we have, how are you directing those and how are they producing for you? Because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And if you are intentional about your roles, you can be intentional about your execution and the behaviors you use to advance them. Execution is critically important because in this domain, we find the evidence about our values, roles, and beliefs. And if we're advancing these things, are we achieving what we want to achieve? Do we know enough? Are we doing enough? Are we deploying our resources effectively? If we deploy these resources effectively and our focus and intent is in the right place, we achieve and confirm our identity. Discovery number 6 is resilience. And what is resilience? It's really the capacity to recover, to adapt to new circumstance, and welcome change for the positive possibilities it offers. Resilience is hugely important. As we receive rewards and recognition that stem from being great at anything, it confirms our passion for whatever that may be. When we're recognized, when we achieve, when we compare where we're at within a role to where we want to be, and those things line up, it informs that our mindset is effective, that our roles are defined clearly, that our purpose is being advanced, and the daily commitments we're exhibiting and executing are leading us to the place we want to be. And it makes the whole system work. So I think the idea of grit is really important here, and you've heard Luke talk about it before, but I think courageous leaders use grit to cast vision and provide hope, these things that are informed by resilience. And as we become more resilient, our sense of hope, it continues to grow. And you guys may recall last season we had Dr. Chan Hellman on. And in that discussion, we talked about there's no such thing as false hope. There's only hope and wish. And we can have hope anytime there's a goal and a pathway. Having that growth mindset, the ability to build our skills and do the things and execute in a way that moves us down those pathways makes anything achievable. As intentional and courageous leaders, it's why we need resilience. We need to find confirmation in the things we're really good at doing, confirming our beliefs, our mindsets, and our purpose to reshape and redirect our lives to wherever they want to go. And that's how we arrive at that 6th discovery of resilience. If we do everything else right, this is the outcome. And the future is ours to imagine. These 6 discoveries, they help me embrace the power of positive potential. And I believe the potential of every person, including myself, is unknown. The potential of today is unknown. What I do know, though, is that the more intentional I am about how I prepare for my approach each day, the better prepared I am to transform today's potential into something meaningful. Thinking back, I often go back to my hometown of Claremore, Oklahoma, and I'll take a drive through Willow Run. And I always pull into the park and turn left, and I circle around the back to Lot 29, where the trailer my first memories were born still stands today. I sit in my car staring at that trailer, and I feel so anchored in the moment. I have an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the lessons I've learned throughout my life. And as I observe where my life began, I just sit there. I sit there and take inventory of my journey from where it started to where I am today. And in that moment, I am thankful. I'm thankful for every experience, every learning, and every person that's been part of my life. You know, in The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck, he wrote, "Life is difficult." And this is a great truth because once we truly see this truth, we can transcend it. And I agree. When we truly know that life is difficult, only when we can understand and accept that fact, life ceases to be difficult. So yes, life is hard, and the sooner we accept this fact, the easier it becomes. But life is also remarkable if only we choose courage over comfort. But we have to embrace the work, the leadership and effort required being deeply human and building thriving communities. The gift of life is the richest gift we will ever receive. So as we go forward, let's connect with and champion one another as we experience this journey together, and in doing so, we will win the day. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, Wodo.
All right, Chris, well, thank you for sharing all of that. I really like just the way that you put all of that together. It was meaningful for me to hear that. As you were telling those stories and sharing the discoveries, my mind kept kind of going to, high school physics of like this idea of potential energy. There's a ball sitting up on the top of, a ramp or whatever, and it has potential energy, but it takes something to put it over the edge and for it to actually do something with that energy. So I'm just curious for you, like, what is it that pushed you from having that potential to actually rolling down the hill? And I know it wasn't like one thing all at the same time. It was a process, but what was kind of some of those first steps that brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, I want to cover that. Then I want to come back to the idea of that ball.
Mm-hmm.
But, for me, I will say I feel like I had to get really lucky.
Mm-hmm.
That it was a bunch of right people at just the right time and resources, right? So not just the people intervening in my life or mentoring or coaching, like in spots where they didn't have to. I mean, I consider my first coach and mentor was someone that was 17 years old when I was 16. Yeah, from a here's what adult life looks like sort of thing, in a non-parental way. And I'll never forget. Like Brian Conley says, hey, have you decided what you're doing for next fall? Talking about where to go to school. And he's like, and I said, yeah, I've got a scholarship to NEO and I'm planning on going up there. And he's like, no, you're not. He's like, you're going to Stillwater. So, okay, I'll go to Stillwater. And like all that butterfly effect of where I end up for employment and the people that I meet in those places, Bob Schooley coming into my life and saying, hey man, like the airport readers are good, but you're going to have to step up your game and get like really into the science. And like that decision to go to grad school and do that particular research around exactly the things we talked about. But there's a story, the stories associated with the 6 discoveries aren't all in that presentation. We'll get into those as we move through this season. But there's stories about having grandparents that were there for me in time of need that stepped up, like after they had raised their kids and gave us a safe home. And like without them, I'm not here. Without Brian Conley, I'm not here. Without Bob Schooley, I'm not here. Without Ben West, I'm not here. But it's, we're learning every day, and I just feel so fortunate. And anytime I can kind of collect what I've learned along the way and get that out there, I hope that it helps people. But it is the care of people that had no obligation to care
Wow.
that inspires me to do the work that we do. And like it feels to me like that's what the world needs a lot more of. And so this idea of who's your champion and who are you championing for is a theme that I care about a lot. And how many people and how many businesses can we connect with, communities, organizations, nonprofits, whoever, can we help clarify their purpose, excavate that, and action it through commitment? Like that's what provides meaning, because ultimately we all want to be part of a thriving community. But it's the values that were imparted upon me from everyone starting at a young age, starting with people, within my family, and continues to grow. And I think they're worth carrying forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to go back to the idea of that ball, though, the one that's sitting on top of the slide. And what does thermodynamics have to do with psychology, right? Everything. Because the ball will sit there until it's actioned upon.
Yeah.
And that's that whole idea of entropy that really strikes me as profound. Anytime you hear a business say that runs itself, like nothing runs itself. We have better outcomes when we don't do anything versus doing something. No, like that's not true. We're doing the things wrong. Like anything left alone decays. it trends downward. And just like that ball sitting on top of the slide, I believe every person and every business is that ball. And there are certain things, there are frameworks and actions that can be applied to that. If I push that ball, it's going to go down the slide. By the same token, if you get clear about purpose and you action that purpose through commitment and you learn and do the things that are aligned with it, you're going to get better performance. Like, the rules of performance apply like the rules of physics. Everybody says, well, this business is different, this market's different. Yes, there are certain technicals in the market that are different.
Right.
The function of the business is not. And that's why we should all have confidence that if we don't like where we are fully empowered to change it and kind of be, like, we are the creators of our own space. Like, that's the whole idea. We've got to meet God halfway. We don't just sit here and say, give me something. Mm-hmm. We identify what we want and we use our gifts to go make things happen. Mm-hmm. And that's really the idea is, there was enough suffering in my life that I didn't like where I was. So got to push the ball. Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. So I think that's hopefully how it all ties together and why I want to share the story. And I think if we are champions for other people, we can remove that component of luck to a degree, or we can be that component of luck for someone else. And just by modeling the way, by giving them a word of inspiration, by pointing them in a direction when they don't have one, I think that's huge. And that's, why I care about youth leadership initiatives so passionately, is because there's a lot of places out there where hope's hard to find. Mm-hmm. And whether that's around the corner or in rural Oklahoma or in the Pacific coast of Oregon, we have to champion hope. And there are laws that govern that. And that's what I want to bring to the world. And I just thank you, because you action a lot of things that make that possible. So well, thank you.
I'm grateful to be part of it for sure. So if somebody who's listening is feeling like they're that ball, kind of sitting on the top of the slide, we want to help. So how do people get in touch with us? What's kind of their action step to take if we're going to be involved?
Right. I mean, one, none of us are hard to find, so we're on our website, LinkedIn's, Facebook, but really make sure you connect with us. That's the biggest thing. If you want to connect from afar, sign up for the newsletter. If you want to connect and you want to see who we are as people and how we coach and our coaching styles, all of that's on our website at purposeandperformancegroup.com. We have an Ignite Your Purpose course on our Igniter Academy. We coach around exactly all these concepts, and we coach coaches. So if you're interested in being a coach that helps people find and activate their purpose, we can help with that too. But the main thing is connect. And let's start the conversation about what you want to achieve and what is your, how do you define success? And let's go achieve that together, because there are laws that govern what we achieve. And it's the power of people and the potential that's in every person and every business that we are obligated to activate. I think the crime is to see the ball and the potential that's within it and not give it a nudge. Yeah. And that's what we're here for. Yeah. So I just want to thank everybody for listening and connecting. And I look forward to the conversation next week with Luke and Hannah to understand how do they internalize some of these messages, what do they take away, and what they have to share back to the listeners. Awesome.
I'm looking forward to it too.
Awesome. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chris.
Magic in the Room is hosted by Chris Province, Hannah Bratteroo and Luke Freeman, and produced by Ben West. Theme music is by Evan Grimm. Title track Fake Love available on Apple Music, and this podcast was recorded at Storycatcher Studio with video and audio editing and production support by Brad O'Hara and Alicia Crum, with inspiration, strategy and technical support by yours truly, Neil Hughes. Magic in the Room is a production of Purpose and Performance Group. You can find us at purposeandperformancegroup.com. And remember,